Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. The women's growing unease is fueled by Nick's peculiar voice. He claims he's just tired and wants this to end. He becomes evasive and briefly blacks out in response to Chelsea's request for a time frame. He claims he needs to wait for a call from his brother before suddenly ending the call after waking up and snoring into the phone. After banging back a soft drink, he drops out. Adam inquires about meeting Riza's friend. He starts to question whether Riza's decision to break off their kiss was a reward for his efforts when Adam and Riza finally part up. He believes she's ready to take a chance and work together again. Adam is eager to meet her partner once she mentions him, just so he knows who he's dealing with. Adam may be bluffing, Riza thinks, despite her desire for him to remain. Adam claims his sole goal is to accumulate funds. Riza Adam Y&R. Deteriorating Nick must renew. Adam comes to his suite and finds Nick passed out. Groggy Nick stumbles off the couch. His brother advises him to relax, but Nick is hungry for action. He pretends he's fatigued from the exercise and goes off to the restroom to freshen up. Even Chelsea notices Nick is off. When Victoria drops by Crimson Lights, she discusses with Sharon and Chelsea about her rendezvous with Summer and the plot to take Phyllis down. With Daddy's help, she's going to knock her off her fairy tale throne. Once Victoria goes, Chelsea notes how strange Nick seemed. That went over Sharon's head. She's convinced he's just powering through to protect everyone. Sharon, Chelsea Y&R. Lily and Phyllis feud. Lily fails to dodge Phyllis at the athletic club. The redhead starts teasing her about betraying her family, criticizing her for wanting revenge on Kane just because he loves her. She's confident that no one in Lily's family will forgive her after the pain she's forced them undergo. Each of them throws betraying Kane in the other's face. When Phyllis brags about their connection in the bedroom and boardroom and accuses Lily of envy, Lily says she's amazed by how low she can sink. Phyllis Y&R. Once Phyllis pokes about the arrangement she made with Victor, Lily advises that she should be more terrified of what he will do to her. You can't take the firm he built and not expect him to come after you. Phyllis maintains she's not afraid. As she brags about Summer Conglomerate, Lily busts out laughing at the silly name. Rubbing it in her face, Lily taunts that Phyllis will be begging Kane for aid in a few weeks because she's too inept to run a corporation. The final scenes. Back at the athletic club, Phyllis continues to fight off Lily, who has been joined by Victoria. Phyllis accuses them of going along with diabolical Victor and thinks they've done even worse than Kane. They remind her she's lost her children, for good this time, and it will have all been for nothing. Victoria pushes her to flee her predicament before it's too late. Lily adds it's no win if you end up alone. Lily Victoria Y&R. At Crimson Lights, Chelsea concerns to Sharon that Adam could sink into the man he used to be. Sharon is convinced that his love for his family will keep him strong. Adam understands that Chelsea is his destiny. We have so much more we could lose now, Chelsea confesses. Chelsea Sharon Y&R. In their Vegas suite, Nick pulls himself together in the bathroom with a little help from some narcotics. He returns to Adam, who indicates he's close to a deal with Riza. All he needs is her partner's approval. They presume that's Matt, and Adam tells his brother to rein it in. I'm ready. Nick moans, pumping his fist. Nick Adam Y&R. Matt comes in Riza's suite and admires how well her companion cleaned up. She believes her old buddy can make them a lot of money. Matt likes money, so he asks her to set up a private encounter. Nick could barely contain his excitement. The energy in his stride, the sharp focus in his eyes, and the restless way he moved all pointed to one thing. Something big was unfolding, and he was right in the middle of it. The source of that buzz? Adam. Against all expectations, Adam had managed to pull off something no one saw coming. He secured a mysterious meeting with Matt, a figure whose influence and intentions were still largely unknown. And that alone was enough to shift the atmosphere for everyone involved. For Nick, this wasn't just another business move or casual development. It felt like a turning point. Adam, who had long been unpredictable and often at odds with the family, was now making calculated moves that hinted at a deeper strategy. Nick didn't fully trust Adam. History made that impossible, but he couldn't deny the significance of this meeting. If Adam had truly gained access to Matt, it meant doors were opening that had previously been sealed shut. Nick's enthusiasm wasn't just about curiosity. It was about opportunity. He saw potential in every angle of the situation. What did Matt want? Why agree to meet Adam? And more importantly, how could this meeting shift the balance of power? Nick's mind raced with possibilities, each more intriguing than the last. This could be the kind of moment that changed everything, not just for Adam, but for the entire family dynamic. Meanwhile, Adam carried himself with a quiet confidence that only added to the mystery. He wasn't revealing much, keeping details close to the vest, which only made Nick more eager to learn the truth. There was something different about Adam this time, less reactive, more deliberate. It suggested that he had a plan, one that extended far beyond a simple conversation with Matt. As Nick tried to piece things together, his excitement grew. He wasn't just observing from the sidelines, he felt pulled into the momentum of it all. Whether he liked it or not, Adam's actions had a ripple effect, and Nick was already feeling the impact. The anticipation of what might come next kept him on edge in the best possible way. While Nick and Adam navigated this high-stakes development, a completely different kind of intensity was erupting elsewhere. Lily and Phyllis found themselves locked in a confrontation that quickly spiraled into something far more explosive than either had likely anticipated. Their clash wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. It was raw, emotional, and deeply personal. Every word they exchanged seemed to carry the weight of past grievances, unresolved tensions, and simmering resentment. Neither woman held back, and as the argument escalated, it became clear that this wasn't just about a single issue. It was about everything that had been building beneath the surface for far too long. Lily stood her ground with unwavering determination. She wasn't about to let Phyllis dominate the conversation or twist the narrative. Her voice carried a sharp edge, cutting through the tension with pointed accusations and unfiltered honesty. She had reached a point where silence was no longer an option, and she made that abundantly clear. Phyllis, on the other hand, met Lily's intensity head-on. If anything, she amplified it. Known for her fiery personality and refusal to back down, Phyllis matched Lily's energy with equal force. She challenged every claim, countered every accusation, and pushed the confrontation further with each passing moment. The result was a verbal showdown that felt almost inevitable given their history. What made their exchange so gripping was the emotional undercurrent driving it. This wasn't just about being right or winning an argument. It was about pride, trust, betrayal, and the need to be heard. Both women were fighting for their own sense of truth, and neither was willing to concede. As voices rose and tensions peaked, the air between them seemed to crackle with intensity. It was the kind of confrontation that left no room for misunderstanding. Everything was laid bare. Every frustration, every suspicion, every lingering doubt. And once those words were spoken, there was no taking them back. The fallout from their clash was bound to be significant. Relationships don't easily recover from that level of confrontation, and the damage inflicted in the heat of the moment often lingers long after the argument ends. For Lily and Phyllis, this wasn't just a disagreement, it was a defining moment that could reshape how they interact moving forward. Back in Nick's world, the excitement surrounding Adam's meeting continued to build. The contrast between the two situations couldn't have been more striking. On one side, there was anticipation and strategic maneuvering. On the other, emotional upheaval and personal conflict. Yet both threads were equally important, each contributing to a larger, interconnected narrative. Nick couldn't ignore the tension between Lily and Phyllis, even as his focus remained on Adam. The ripple effects of their clash could easily intersect with whatever Adam was planning. In a world where personal and professional lives were so deeply intertwined, no conflict existed in isolation. As Nick reflected on everything unfolding around him, he realized just how volatile the current situation had become. Opportunities and conflicts were emerging simultaneously, creating an environment where anything could happen. It was both exhilarating and unpredictable, a combination that kept him constantly on edge. Adam's meeting with Matt loomed large over everything. The mystery surrounding it only added to its importance. Nick found himself wondering what kind of conversation would take place behind closed doors. Would Adam reveal his true intentions? Would Matt present an offer, a challenge, or something else entirely? The possibilities seemed endless. As the day unfolded, the the tension in the air remained palpable. Nick's excitement, Adam's mystery, and the fallout from Lily and Phyllis's clash all combined to create a sense of anticipation that was impossible to ignore. It felt like the calm before a storm, except the storm had already begun, and no one knew how far it would go. Nick found himself drawn back to the central question. What did Adam's meeting with Matt truly mean? The answer had the potential to reshape everything. And until that answer was revealed, the uncertainty would continue to fuel both excitement and unease. In the end, what stood out most was the sheer intensity of it all. Every character was operating at full capacity, driven by their own motivations, fears, and ambitions. Whether it was Nick's eager anticipation, Adam's calculated moves, or the fiery confrontation between Lily and Phyllis, each moment carried a weight that couldn't be ignored. The story was far from over. If anything, it was just beginning to reach a new level of complexity. And as each thread continued to unfold, one thing became increasingly clear. Nothing would remain the same for long. Nick's enthusiasm didn't fade. It intensified the longer he thought about what Adam had managed to set in motion. The idea that Adam had secured a meeting with Matt continued to replay in his mind, like a headline that refused to lose its impact. There was something almost surreal about it. Adam, who so often found himself on the outside looking in, had suddenly positioned himself at the center of a potentially game-changing development. Nick tried to stay grounded, but it wasn't easy. Every instinct told him that this wasn't just a casual conversation Adam had lined up. There was weight behind it, intention behind every move Adam had made to get to this point. Nick knew his brother well enough to understand that nothing Adam did was without purpose, especially not something this significant. As he paced through his thoughts, Nick began to consider the broader implications. If Adam had access to Matt, what did that mean for everyone else? Was this the beginning of a new alliance? Or was Adam stepping into something far more complicated? Something that could just as easily backfire as it could succeed? Nick couldn't ignore the possibility that this meeting might carry risks along with its potential rewards. Still, the excitement outweighed the concern. Nick thrived on momentum, and right now, everything felt like it was building towards something big. He found himself wanting to be involved, to understand every detail, to anticipate the next move before it even happened. The unknown didn't scare him, it energized him. Adam, meanwhile, remained as composed as ever. His calm demeanor only added to the intrigue. While others speculated and questioned, Adam stayed focused, almost attached in a way that suggested he was already several steps ahead. He didn't offer explanations, and he didn't seem interested in easing anyone's curiosity. That silence spoke volumes. It was clear that Adam intended to control the narrative. By keeping details under wraps, he maintained an advantage, one that Nick both respected and found frustrating. There was a fine line between strategy and secrecy, and Adam walked it with precision. Whether that would ultimately work in his favor remained to be seen. As anticipation built around the mysterious meeting, the emotional fallout from Lily and Phyllis's confrontation continued to spread. The intensity of their clash had left a mark, not just on them, but on everyone who had witnessed or heard about it. It wasn't the kind of argument that faded into the background. It lingered, shaping perceptions and shifting dynamics. Lily found herself replaying the confrontation in her mind, analyzing every word, every reaction. She stood by what she had said, but that didn't mean she was unaffected by it. There was a complexity to her emotions, a mix of validation, frustration, and lingering anger that refused to settle. She knew she had reached a breaking point. For too long, she had held back, choosing restraint over confrontation. But that moment with Phyllis had changed something. It had forced her to confront not only Phyllis, but also her own limits. And now that those limits had been crossed, there was no going back to how things were before. Phyllis, on the other hand, processed the confrontation in her own way. She wasn't one to dwell in silence or second-guess herself for long. Instead, she leaned into her perspective, convinced that she had been justified in every word she had thrown Lily's way. If anything, the argument had only reinforced her belief that she needed to stand her ground even more firmly. But beneath that confidence, there was an undeniable edge. The clash with Lily hadn't been just another disagreement. It had struck a nerve. And while Phyllis might not openly admit it, the intensity of that moment had affected her more than she cared to show. The tension between them didn't dissipate. It evolved. It became something quieter, but no less powerful, a lingering strain that influenced every interaction, every decision moving forward. Neither woman was willing to make the first move toward resolution, and as a result, the divide between them only grew deeper. Back in Nick's orbit, the sense of anticipation reached a near breaking point. The closer Adam's meeting with Matt got, the more charged the atmosphere became. It was as if everything else had been put on hold, waiting for this one moment to unfold. Nick couldn't help but imagine how the meeting might play out. He pictured Adam walking into the room, composed and confident, ready to engage on his own terms. He imagined Matt observing, assessing, weighing every word and gesture. It would be a meeting of minds, but also a test, one where the stakes were far higher than either of them might openly acknowledge. The uncertainty was what made it so compelling. There were no guarantees, no clear outcomes to rely on. Everything depended on how the conversation unfolded, on what was said, and perhaps even more importantly, on what was left unsaid. Nick knew that whatever happened in that meeting would send ripples outward. It would influence decisions, shift alliances, and potentially redefine relationships. And while he couldn't control the outcome, he was deeply invested in what it might mean. At the same time, he couldn't completely ignore the ongoing tension between Lily and Phyllis. Their conflict was a reminder that not everything could be approached strategically. Some battles were driven by emotion, by deeply personal stakes that didn't lend themselves to careful planning. That contrast struck Nick more than ever. On one side, there was Adam's calculated maneuvering, a chess game played with precision and patience. On the other, there was the raw, unfiltered intensity of Lily and Phyllis's clash, a storm fueled by emotion and history. Both were powerful in their own way. Both had the potential to change everything. As the hours passed, the sense of inevitability grew stronger. Something was going to give. Whether it came from Adam's meeting or the ongoing fallout between Lily and Phyllis, it felt like the story was building toward a moment of reckoning. Nick leaned into that feeling rather than resisting it. He understood that moments like this didn't come often, the kind where everything seemed poised on the edge of transformation. And while the outcome was uncertain, the significance was undeniable. Adam, ever the strategist, appeared ready for whatever came next. His confidence suggested that he had already considered multiple scenarios, prepared for outcomes both favorable and challenging. He wasn't stepping into the unknown blindly. He was navigating it with intention. Lily and Phyllis, meanwhile, stood on opposite sides of a divide that showed no signs of closing. Their confrontation had drawn a line, and neither seemed willing to cross it. The question wasn't whether their conflict would continue. It was how far it would go. In the end, the tension that connected all of these threads was what made the situation so compelling. Every character was operating under pressure, driven by their own motivations and emotions. And as those forces collided, the potential for change grew stronger. Nick felt it in every moment, the sense that something big was coming. Not just a single event, but a shift that would ripple through everything and everyone involved. And as he waited for it to unfold, his excitement remained as strong as ever, fueled by the knowledge that whatever happened next, it would be anything but ordinary. Nick's anticipation eventually reached a point where it wasn't just excitement. It became a kind of restless urgency. Waiting had never been his strength, and now, with so much riding on Adam's mysterious meeting with Matt, patience felt almost impossible. Every passing moment seemed to stretch longer than the last, as if time itself was slowing just to heighten the tension. He found himself going over every detail again and again, trying to read between the lines of what little Adam had revealed. It wasn't much, but that in itself said everything. Adam's silence wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, controlled, and strategic. And that only made Nick more certain that whatever was about to happen carried serious weight. There was also a shift in how Nick viewed Adam. Not a complete change. Years of complicated history couldn't be erased overnight, but there was a growing recognition that Adam was evolving. He wasn't acting on impulse or emotion the way he often had in the past. This version of Adam was more disciplined, more focused, and far more dangerous in a strategic sense. Nick couldn't decide if that was a good thing or not. On one hand, it meant Adam might finally be channeling his intelligence and ambition in a productive direction. On the other, it raised the stakes for everyone involved. A calculated Adam was far less predictable than an emotional one, and far harder to counter if things went sideways. Meanwhile, Adam prepared in his own quiet way. He didn't rush. He didn't over-explain. Everything about his approach suggested confidence, but not arrogance, control, but not rigidity. He was walking into this meeting with Matt fully aware of the unknowns, yet unwilling to let them throw him off balance. There was a sense that Adam wasn't just reacting to circumstances anymore. He was shaping them. Elsewhere, the emotional storm between Lily and Phyllis hadn't calmed. It had settled into something deeper, more entrenched. The explosive argument they had unleashed earlier was no longer just an isolated moment. It had turned into a defining fracture, one that began to influence everything around them. Lily tried to refocus her energy, to channel her frustration into something productive, but it wasn't easy. The confrontation with Phyllis had stirred up too much, old wounds, unresolved doubts, and a renewed sense of mistrust that refused to fade. She kept telling herself that she had done the right thing by standing her ground, but the emotional aftermath lingered. There was also a growing clarity within Lily. For a long time, she had navigated situations carefully, often choosing diplomacy over direct conflict. But now something had shifted. She wasn't interested in softening her stance anymore. If anything, the clash with Phyllis had reinforced her determination to be direct, even if it meant creating more tension. Phyllis, unsurprisingly, was moving in a similar direction, but with her own signature intensity. She didn't see the confrontation as something to recover from. She saw it as something to build on. In her mind, the lines had been drawn, and there was no reason to pretend otherwise. If Lily wanted a fight, Phyllis was more than ready to continue it. Yet beneath that outward confidence, there was an undercurrent of calculation. Phyllis wasn't just reacting emotionally. She was thinking ahead, considering how to turn the situation to her advantage. Conflict, for her, wasn't just personal. It was also strategic. That made the situation even more volatile. As these parallel tensions continued to build, the moment of Adam's meeting with Matt finally began to feel real, imminent, unavoidable. The anticipation that had been simmering now reached a boiling point. Nick could feel it.